Hello and welcome to another brand new video. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jeroen Mul. I'm a professional racing driver working and racing for Lamborghini, doing all sorts of cool stuff with supercars. And today is not about a Lamborghini, but it's about a brand new McLaren, because I had the opportunity to check out the brand new McLaren 765LT for the first time up close here in the Netherlands. And I just wanted to give you my thoughts on this car, seeing it for the very first time. Now, before we get into the video, I just want to explain you what I'm planning on doing here with these kinds of reviews. On my channel, as you may have seen before, if you haven't, make sure to browse my channel and check my previous content. But on my channel, I mainly talk about racing and about Lamborghinis and my experience of owning an Aventador S Roadster. Now, obviously, I am still a car guy at heart. As I'm working for Lamborghini, I'm slightly biased, but I love every car and every kind of special and interesting car, mainly sports and supercars, obviously. And I thought I'll just give you my opinion and my view on certain cars. I'm definitely not a car journalist. I don't want to go into those kind of details that you maybe see in other videos of proper car journalists that do that way better than I can. I just want to give you my personal opinion with my taste and my liking. Do with it whatever you want, but it's just my view on certain cars. I'm just a car guy that loves cars, is very fortunate to be able to drive a lot of interesting cars and see them. And I have some experience of driving cars fast and handling them on a racetrack and going sideways and stuff. So in that perspective, I just want to give you my view on these cars. And in today's video, it's about the McLaren 765LT. Now, for those of you that don't know the car, the McLaren 765LT is the hardcore track-focused version of the 720S, McLaren's current Super Series middle-range super sports car. Now, the basic McLaren 720S has 720 horsepower, as the name suggests, and the 765LT that bumps that up to 765 horsepower, giving it a 45 horsepower increase. But the LT cars of McLaren are about way more than just an increase in power and a reduction in weight. They're about being a full-on track-focused version of already a very, very good car. My previous experiences with McLarens have been somewhat extensive. I've been able to drive the 650S, the 570S and the 570 GT, the 720S Coupe and Spider versions, and I also got to drive the legendary McLaren Senna. Actually, it was Shmee 150's car. If you haven't seen that video, check the link here in the top, because that was quite an epic day where we got to drive that car, the McLaren Senna and his Ford GT, on the Nürburgring Grand Prix track. But going back to this McLaren 765LT, unfortunately, it was just a private viewing. That's also why I don't have any more footage other than the little clips and photos that you might see from my photo camera on my phone. But because of obviously the limitations that we currently have and the dealership has here in the Netherlands due to the COVID-19 crisis, which we're still under, it was just a short preview, and I was just very lucky and fortunate to get an invite to get an hour to walk around the car and have a look at it for the first time up close. They launched it just on the internet in March, of course, due to the cancellation of the International Geneva Motor Show. And I have to say that my first impression of this car was that the exterior didn't necessarily improve. Obviously, I really did like the quad exhausts in the rear and the slightly enlarged rear wing. But other than that, the lower body kit mainly, so the front splitter, the side bends, the side blades, the skirts, and the extended diffuser with the side blades on the side of the rear diffuser, I don't know, they felt a little bit aftermarket to me, if I'm honest. It felt a little bit like it could have been a body kit of a brand like Novitec, properly done. But still, it didn't feel like the car was supposed to be that way. I like the look of the 720S in its standard form way better. The 665LT, the previous LT version in the Super Series lineup, I thought that was one of the best looking cars McLaren had ever made, and still does. The P1 still holds the crown for me, and is definitely a car that is in the top of my bucket list of cars to drive sometime. So I really hope to get the opportunity to drive a McLaren P1 sometime. But anyway, the McLaren 765LT, my first impression from the internet photos wasn't that excited about the exterior. Obviously, the technical improvements that they made were very, very impressive. But seeing the car yesterday in the flesh for the first time, everything did come together much better. If you see the carbon fiber work, the splitter in the front, the way the car rakes a little bit more forward, they lowered the front more compared to the rear, making the car tip a little bit more over on its front axle to give a more aggressive stance and improve the aerodynamics. And then on top of that, with the carbon fiber diffuser in the back, which is huge, and every little detail that they added to the exterior, it definitely looks a lot better in the flesh, and I was very happy to see that. Personally, I still think that the 720S as a package looks better, but I'll get more into that later on. Because before I give you my full-on opinion of this car, I want to explain a little bit my view on these kinds of track-focused supercars. Now, as I also explained a little bit in my video about the software update of the Aventure S Roadster, again, check that video as well, but for me, a supercar on the road needs to be exciting on the road, even when you're staying within the speed limits and within what is socially accepted, basically, of driving on the road. And nowadays these cars get so fast and so potent that you just cannot even come close to its full potential on the public road. And that to me just feels like a little bit of a waste, and the car just needs to be exciting also when you're driving slower, or at least when we're not going completely crazy and using that full potential, or at least getting close to that full potential. So track-focused supercars to me are always compromised because they're focused on being a track car, but they're still a road car that has to comply to road regulations. You need to have airbags, you need to have enough cooling for the car to be able to be in stop-start traffic on the motorway when it's hot outside, and it shouldn't overheat. So there's a lot of compromises that car manufacturers have to do to cars to make them on one side track worthy and on the other side still a road car with number plates. And to me that just never really makes much sense. It's also because I'm truly spoiled of being able to drive proper race cars on a racetrack, which are just so much better than any other track-focused road-going supercar. It doesn't matter how powerful, because you just cannot weigh up to proper slick tires, racing tires, a proper braking system with the amount of cooling that you need for a track car. The weight reduction and aerodynamics that you can add on a race car are always way, way, way better and way more aggressive than you can ever add on a road car. So that all being said, for me, a track-focused supercar for the road always feels too much of a compromise, and it's usually just not my thing. Funny as it is, obviously I still love to try them and drive them, and I can be very impressed with it, but to own a car like this and to drive them on the road usually doesn't really make sense to me. But still, this McLaren 765LT does look incredibly impressive. If you look at the numbers, they are mind-blowing. The McLaren 720S to me is already scary fast. The acceleration of that car is just out of this world. But if you look at what they've done to the 765LT to make it perform even better, I have the official spec sheet here that they gave me yesterday at that viewing, is just incredible. So if you spec the car in the way that it saves the most weight, because again that's also dependent on certain options that you take. If you want the full 80 kilograms of weight reduction that they actually managed to do with this car, you need to cancel the air conditioning, you need to get the McLaren Senna carbon fiber bucket seats, and there's a lot of things that you just have to do in order to get that full weight reduction, which I don't think many people actually do. But that being said, the car is still incredibly light. I mean, it's 1,229 kilograms when you do that full 80 kilogram reduction, which is in this kind of range and these kind of cars is just ridiculously low, a lightweight. So that's very impressive. Hence the stunning acceleration times. So the car goes from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 2.8 seconds. For a rear-wheel drive car, that is insane. More impressive, 0 to 200 kilometers an hour in 7.2 seconds. Quarter mile, sub 10 seconds. and a top speed of 330 kilometers an hour. Now, obviously, with a car like this, top speed is not that important. It is all about the acceleration and mainly those sprint times in between speeds, because that's what you're doing on a racetrack. You're never standing still, maybe at the start, but that's it. But it's always going from one corner to the other. You need that acceleration in between. Now, as I explained, they improved that performance by increasing the power of the 4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine from 720 to 765 horsepower, PS that is, the metric system. I'm not sure about the BHP, whatever they use in the UK, but anyway, 765 horsepower, so 45 horsepower more, reduction of weight. But the most interesting thing to me is that they reduced, or they shortened, the final drive in the gearbox. Now what that does is basically shorten almost all the gear ratios that go through that final drive, which will make the car accelerate or build up revs so much quicker throughout the different gears that you truly need a dual clutch gearbox with paddle shifts in order to keep up with the engine and be able to shift up in time. But that feature, that shortening of that final drive in the gearbox, that is the thing that I'm most excited about and most wanting to try in this car, because this will definitely transform it. The way it will go through the revs and accelerate, and the way you go through the gears will make it extremely exciting, is what I expect. So that is going to be extremely cool. They changed the braking system, so you have the brake calipers of the McLaren Senna standard with the carbon ceramic brake discs of the 720S as standard, and as an option you can also get the carbon ceramic discs of the Senna, which are cured for a lot of months, and I don't know, they're very sophisticated and extremely potent, and believe me, when trying that McLaren Senna on the track, the brake performance of that car is astonishing. On the interior, they didn't change that much. They just used a couple of features to reduce the weight. They made it possible to install the McLaren Senna seats, for which they had to make the center console actually a little bit taller in order for it not to have too much of a drop next to the deeper carbon fiber bucket seats. But they deleted the folding armrest, again in the name of weight reduction, and as an option you can actually get a little window in the interior on the rear partial shelf to have a glance in your rear view mirror into the engine bay, which they then also illuminated with this beautiful red dome light. It's quite an expensive option actually, but it is very cool. Speaking of expensive options, let's talk about the price of this car, because this is again a point where I start to wonder if I would take a 765LT over a regular 720S. Because, brace yourself, I have the official retail price list here. This is for the Netherlands. We have quite a steep CO2 based emission tax, so the car is significantly more expensive here in the Netherlands, but I'll just go from this list and you'll feel and see that it is quite ridiculous. Now, a base McLaren 720S will cost you, start at 317,000 euros here on Dutch license plates with all the taxes paid. 317,000 euros. The base 765LT starts at 412,000 euros. So this car is, as stock, 95,000 euros more expensive than a 720S on which it's based. Now breathe in that for a second, because 95,000 euros to me for an upgraded version of already a very good car is very hard to justify. Now naturally, obviously this car is limited to 765 pieces. It might hold its value way better. So in the end of the day, it could be worth it. And with that changed gearbox and all that stuff, it might definitely feel like a completely different car, but still, having had the experience with the 720S, granted, haven't driven this yet, really hope to get that opportunity, but I still, in my head, it feels very hard to justify that increase in price. And this is just the base price, because after that, all the goodies start. Because you see, the car that was presented to me yesterday had a lot of beautiful carbon fiber work on the exterior, the diffuser, the splitter, all that goody stuff. And that's all optional. If we look at this little list of the exterior carbon fiber optional parts. You can have the exterior door upper in gloss visual carbon fiber, 7,000 euros. Front splitter in carbon fiber, 9,930 euros. Air intakes in the front in visual carbon fiber, 3,000 euros. Rear bumper, the lower part of the rear bumper, 7,650 euros. The diffuser, the gorgeous diffuser that everybody wants in carbon fiber, 9,930 euros. The side skirts, just those side skirts in carbon fiber, 10,000 euros. I mean, you see where this is going, and it just blows my mind. And then we come to the pièce de résistance. As I said, there is an upgradable brake system, so you can get the carbon ceramic brakes from the McLaren Senna on this car to improve the brake performance even more. That option, just those brake discs, costs you 18,950 euros. And again, this just makes me, the car is still compromised. It's still not a race car. Yes, it looks stunning, it shoots flames, it's probably exciting, and it will be very fast, but I just really find it hard to justify that for myself. And this is all before we get to the MSO defined options. Now, MSO is McLaren Special Operations, where you can really start to personalize your car. And it's quite a big list, as you can see. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. But the craziest thing that I just have to pick out of this thing is the roof scoop. So on this car, you can actually get a carbon fiber roof scoop, or in gloss black, but the price is the same. And it's equally ridiculous because just the roof scoop is 38,330 euros. The only good thing or really cool thing to see is that the front fender louvres to reduce the pressure buildup of air in the wheel well are a no-cost option. So that is very cool. But anyway, this price list is just absolutely baffling to me. But just to start off with that 95,000 euro increase over a standard 720S, the only thing I can say about it now is I need to drive it before I know if I can justify it for myself in my head. So basically, to sum up in the end, the car looks a lot better than I expected. I'm still not entirely sure of the concept of a compromised track-focused road-going supercar. The perspective of the shortened gear ratios with the increased power of the engine and the lower weight really excites me and really makes me want to try and drive this car, which hopefully I get the opportunity to do that in November of this year. And that will also determine for me if the price is actually justifiable, because 95,000 euros over a standard 720S, that's a lot. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed me giving you my perspective on this car as I just saw it for the first time. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of it. Again, this is just my personal view. I'm not a journalist. I'm not just overcritical because it's not a Lamborghini. This is just my personal view. As I said, I love the 720S. I'm truly impressed with that car and what it does. So yeah, that is basically this little on paper review of the car. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure to check out all those other videos that I mentioned before as well. Leave comments if you have any other questions or comments about this video, and I hope to see you guys very, very soon again.